impressed me most. I mean, when I first spoke with you, you're pretty hardcore econ, and as you said yourself, had done very little in terms of qualitative interviewing. And as Jeff pointed out when we had our brief discussion just now, it was only a little over 2 years ago you didn't really know what your subject was going to be. So I think it's extraordinarily good progress. I think the thing I liked with the thesis was the flow of the thesis. I thought it was very well written, and I must say, as someone who sits on committees where sometimes I barely understand what is going on, it was a lovely narrative. And I thought the way you work the individual histories and stories into telling us a much bigger picture about the challenges of urbanization, migration, and education in China was an extremely good piece of work. Myself, I like stories, so for me this was excellent, but these raw stories was a very good point. I think in terms of the data, we had, as you heard, and Julie and Jeff are more experts on this than I would be. There are still some current concerns about sampling, and I think you saw that a little bit with the questions we had after your presentation. But that said, I think in terms of what was available, what you worked your way through, you did as good a job with the data as was possible. We do hope that with your future work with this group, you'll be able to gather more of the data from the 10 surveys that they're doing in Beijing, maybe even extending it to other cities, and I think that'll feed back into the thesis that you've already done. So it's well written, it's clearly written, it tells a compelling story, it tells an important story. I thought that the findings you came up with were interesting, they were realistic. I thought also the fact that you have the political judgment to realize that despite these challenges, the hukou is not going to go away immediately, and that therefore, as sort of short to medium-term strategies, one has to think in terms of what could be done to benefit these students now, rather than waiting for perhaps a never to come in the short-term day when the hukou is abolished. As you said, a number of researchers and in fact government officials have been arguing, maybe for 15 years already, that the hukou is perhaps redundant. And I think increasingly in cities like Shanghai and Beijing, they're recognizing that, but the political judgment to remove it entirely is still difficult for them to take. And so you see these kinds of interim steps and measures taking place. Also, as you yourself know, as far as I'm aware, this is the only study of this particular subject, and so I'm sure it's going to get a lot of attention. And personally, I would encourage you to at least work out 1 or 2 articles from this for publication as soon as you can, because I think not only for the China audience, but I think for a broader set of people working on development issues, there's a lot of interesting findings and information in the thesis. So, Julie, Jeff, I don't know if you want to add in. Julie first.
So Jeff, go right ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I think this is really a terrific model for the kind of policy relevant theses we hope our students should do. That many times we get theses where people take a methodology and force it onto a question, and at the end of the day you don't really know if you understand the policy issue. But here, Holly really went through many different methodologies, many different approaches and data sets until she found one where she could really figure out what is going on the ground and what the heart of the policy issue is. And so you read this thesis and you know that that Holly has it right, and that she really has that it's not you're just reading some coefficient after regression, but you actually have you're reading something by someone who really has figured out what is actually going on the ground, and so I really it's a very impressive thesis.
It is, and as I said to Holly earlier, I had to be very careful what I said in terms of the findings are very sad, not the thesis. Because it was really tempting when she walked in, and after I'd read the final one, to say, this is so sad. But I was worried she might think it was about the thesis, which I think I agree with Jeff, I think is terrific. And after listening to the questions that we asked you earlier, it occurred to me that as you move towards articles and you send them out for review, that one community that I know very little about that you might want to tap into is what seems to be a growing literature in internal migration within countries. And it's not a field I know, but I think people like, what's the name, teaches the migration child and family course. Jackie Baba, and people like that will know a lot about. It's possible there's a literature there that none of us knew about, help you tap into.
Great, excellent.
So congratulations.
We've got a picture for what do we need to do now?
Well, just sign those papers.
I have signed papers.
We need somehow to get this.
Jeff's signature.
Jeff's signature somehow in Washington.
I'll mail it. Jeff, are you still with me? Jeff?
Sorry?
I will mail, this is Louisa, I'll mail the